Pursuant to the Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law of 1975, this meeting notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press on October 12th and has been duly advertised in the Asbury Park Press issue of October 14th. All municipal clerks of the townships and the boroughs within the Freehold Regional High School District have been duly notified, and the requirements for other postings have been met on October 12th, 2021. Please join me, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did everybody rise? We're going to have a moment of silence for Manalapan High School graduate in 2015, Kyle Mullen, who passed away during training as a Navy SEAL in San Diego. He went to Yale and Monmouth University, football player, basketball player here. After graduation, joined and qualified to become a Navy SEAL and serve our country. Unfortunately, he passed away during that most very difficult training. Let's have a moment of silence for him. Kyle, rest in peace. Thank you. Mr. Scano, any changes to the executive agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. In addition to the items that were noted on the agenda that was pre-printed before the meeting, the board also discussed in exception number 3, board discussed staff and student health issues. Also, in exception number 3, board discussed student discipline matters. And for exception number 4, the board also discussed negotiations with the Freehold Regional High School District Principals Association.
Is that all, Mr.
That is all.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 6, 2022 reorganizational meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cappiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messenger?
Yes.
Mrs. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Sorry, Mrs. Bruno.
Mrs. Bruno.
Yes.
We'll have to get used to that, Mr. and Mrs. Bruno thing. As we move along. Communications are on file with the board secretary. We are ready for Dr. Stampton's superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. So obviously a lot happening over the past week or so. And the biggest news being that the governor is lifting the mask mandate effective March 7th. We did put communication out to our school community that beginning on that date, the Freehold Regional High School District will be mask optional. There are certainly some caveats to that. First and foremost, the federal requirement for masking on busing has not changed. I've been told that the Department of Health is working on subsequent guidance with the issuance of the rescinding of the mask mandate. And one of the things that's been a difficult process to follow at times over the past couple of years is that often the proclamation comes out and then there are a whole host of details that were not shared in that initial proclamation. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what that might look like. Pleased to report that from a Cali index, Monmouth County moved into the yellow. Our case rate has absolutely plummeted. I mean, our positivity rate in the district right now is somewhere around 0.03%. It's really bottomed out. Hopeful, for what March 7th will bring. We do believe that, obviously it's a step in the right direction. But I am always concerned with what was left out of the announcement and when that other foot drops at times and what that might be. So we'll see what the Department of Health is. And obviously the CDC is still somewhere else. And it's been left up to individual districts to make the determination. And, I know this board and felt strongly about it's time to go mask optional. I believe our entire regional area is doing that. I believe all of Monmouth is going to do that ultimately. So move forward and see what that might bring. In the midst of all of this, the Freehold Regional High School District was evaluated under the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, something otherwise affectionately known as QSAC. That happens, and I say affectionately, sarcastically, that happens every 3 years. It's a fairly elaborate process where it's a combination of an in-person and desk audit from the county office where they grade out the school districts under 5 different broad categories. We did very well in all 5. We will be designated as a highly effective district. And it was a tremendous amount of work, so I want to thank central office team for putting, really spending a lot of hours getting the compliance piece to that in order. And thank you to Nicole Hazel, who really ran point for everybody on that. And thank you to all of the directors and Mr. Boyce, who in all of their necks of the woods did very well under all of these things that we're expected to do. It was National Counseling Week this week, so a special thank you to our school counselors. I think never more important than right now with what students and folks are dealing with. I just think everybody in general, it's public education has not been easy the past couple of years for anyone who works within those systems as well, and as we work to assist our students in sort of normalizing their return and what that looks like, and that was certainly one of the reasons why we made sure to maintain full days coming off of winter break, regardless of the Cali index at that point in time. Really pleased to announce that we have implemented our own SAT review program. Thank you to the folks in CNI who've done an awesome work with that. If you go to the Princeton Review and you get an 18-hour SAT review course online, it's somewhere around $1,000. We're offering 12 hours to over 300 students free, and I think that's a testament to what this district is able to pull together. We also we'll be pulling together students for the sealed by literacy assessment, which is an important component of students demonstrating capacity in other languages, which is something we've done in this district the past couple of years. Very proud of that work. And then we're talking. We have the Start Strong data to kind of discuss, and this is normally a formal presentation. I'm not doing that this evening for several reasons. First and foremost, we still have what is going to be known as the NJGPA, which is going to be the 11th grade graduation assessment set to be administered in the spring. A whole host of issues with it, from the sense that if anybody remembers public ed, about 7, 8, 9 years ago, we had what was known as the HESPA. It was a junior year assessment that you took to graduate. We then spent years of implementing multiple PARC assessments at various grade levels and course components throughout the high school age. And now we're basically gone back to what was the HESPA in some ways, except it's more difficult. And so you have folks across the state who are saying, hey, we have thousands upon thousands of students struggling academically because their schools have been disrupted for 3 years, but let's raise the requirement on the graduation standardized assessment for them to graduate, right? It just doesn't jive. So from a Start Strong perspective, what that measured, so everybody knows this, what the state did was they wanted to create a diagnostic to kind of help give districts a slight overview, a little bit of an insight into where their students may or may not be struggling academically. Frankly, for a district like ours, we have our own internal assessments. We have our own TCAs. We utilize Linkit. We have a lot of internal data that we can draw from to see where our students are or aren't struggling. What Start Strong did for us was not tell us too much at all, because it was bucketed in a very strange way. It was kind of bucketed less support needed, more support needed, no support, right? Minimal support needed. There's 3 different categories. And it was designed to be a quick assessment pulled from old NJSLA assessments where they pulled out different questions and they would tell you how a kid was doing related to last year's standard. So for us, what that meant was about 60% of our kids who were taking ELA 9, Geometry, Algebra 1, Science 9, they're measuring what they did in middle school, not necessarily in our system. Now I will say, across all categories, ELA 9, 10, Geometry, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Science 9, and Science 12, we were much better than what the state was in terms of those percentages of less support needed. Our numbers were much higher.
That's based on last year.
This is based on the previous year. So for instance, in Algebra 2, where at the state level, 72% of our students needed less support, right? But that number is only 40% across the state, right? So Algebra 2 is a good indicator of something in our system, where the kids have been in our math classes for a couple of years, that I would highlight there. The other ones, we needed less support in every single category across the state, except we were right on the state average for geometry. So our students performed well on it, but we're not certain what it told us because we didn't get a very specific breakdown of the skills embedded in where they struggled, right? So it's hard to make sense of. We will be back here in the spring, at the end of the school year, doing a presentation on what the NJ GPA might look like. But I would caution folks that the math component of that assessment is going to be significantly more difficult than what we saw in the previous junior graduation assessment.
Yeah, because it's geometry.
It's got a lot more Algebra 2 in it, I believe, which is, I think more students tend to struggle with Algebra 2 and beyond. And so, we'll be prepared for it, but from a performance standpoint, the district did quote unquote well on Start Strong, whatever that might mean relative to other districts. And of course, we do have a number of programs across the district. We have on-demand tutoring for all 9th and 10th graders. Anybody who wants it can access Tutor Me at any time of the day in ELA and math, and that's hooking up with a live person on the other end of that for tutoring. We've seen some success with that. We obviously have in-person tutoring at the school itself, after school in ELA and math, and then we're utilizing a new online reading program through Able for students with special needs. And we've got a number of students moving forward with that program. So there's an awful lot of support happening on the other side of things as well. And that concludes our report.
Junior exam going to be 3 days?
Potentially, yes.
Really? They don't pay attention. Don't they know about the COVID? State? I'm surprised they're having it.
So there was a lively debate at
The
the,
learning curve.
so at the State Board of Ed, there was last week, there was a pretty heated debate over the graduation assessment. The State Board, the Department of Ed came in and said the cut score should be 725. We all said, how do you arrive at 725? What does that entail? Because that hasn't really been answered for any of us in the field. And then the state board, at some urging from some prominent legislators, said, no, we need to make it should be more rigorous, it should be 750. The question that was asked then, well, what is the difference on the assessment for a 725 versus a 750? That question has not been answered. I don't know if it can be answered. And Bruce, am I missing anything, right? I don't think so.
Can't be answered until they get the results.
Right. Well, so, you know, we're about to, the path that the state is on right now is about to engage in a statewide assessment that has some real high stakes attached to it for kids without it having been field tested, and with no understanding from the general public and those of us in the field about how you score on these assessments and what it is or isn't going to entail. So that's the path New Jersey has moved forward on presently.
Great. Thank you. We have one board report tonight, and that is finance. We met last week, and Mr. Messenger will do that report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there were two areas of discussion at the Finance Committee meeting last week. First, we had John Swisher in for the audit update. So he's from Supley, Clooney and Company. And the audit is complete, but it's being delayed. In prior years, he has come in here and given a presentation, but he's going to be delayed only because the state got involved with hiring an actuary for their pension obligations and screwed everything up and delayed everything, really. So everything on our end and the auditor's end is fine. It's just state issues are causing a delay. But he did tell us that we are clean from an audit basis. And again, this independent auditor expresses his opinion on our financial statements. And everyone needs to know, or should know rather, that our numbers have been tested and they can be relied on in the audit firm's opinion. You know, the financial numbers that we're approving each and every month are what is actually going out the door. And basically how they come to this determination is that the firm goes through and they sample purchasing and payroll vouchers and all sorts of documents, and they test them to see whether we have strong internal controls, which they have come to determine that we do. And there's also been other audits now with the additional state and federal dollars that have come into the district due to COVID. There's all sorts of auditing done with those to make sure the money is being properly spent. And after all this, the audit firm had no comments or recommendations for Freehold Regional. And we did go over also how, and this is something Dr. Sampson and Mr. Boyce have talked about before, about how our financial situation was helped by COVID, considering that we have S2 cuts of $30 million over 7 years. But look, we're in year 4 of that. It makes a bad situation a little bit better, but the bottom line is we are still underfunded. But the bottom line from the auditor is we're in good shape and the audit went smoothly. The other part of the presentation was our energy company, Synergistic, and we had the client manager in, and we found out what an energy specialist does and how they work with the district to lower our energy costs. So this meeting was to really take stock of our partnerships 3 years into the contract. And it's all about how best schools can use technology to reduce energy costs. And everyone needs to know that the energy specialist is actually embedded in the district, and she's here every day. And we were notified that through August of 2021, our total cost avoidance for energy has been $1.17 million. And we heard all about how new boilers have really helped, and we've had the fewest amount of complaints about the temperature in the buildings in quite some time. and that is because the energy specialist is here. And I mean, I could attest to the efficacy because I had brought up at the meeting how for years it could be 0 degrees outside in the Marlboro High School gym. I always wear a t-shirt because it's an oven in that place. And I did point out that the last time I was there, for the first time ever, I was actually comfortable. And she had explained how she works in conjunction with the principals and the SECAs and how they have a strategic zoning strategy and how it's implemented. So after-school activities get condensed in one area of a school and the HVAC gets shut in the rest of the school. So kids aren't spread out with HVAC going in this entire building. So we learned all about how the energy specialist works with the staff. And if anyone's interested, we also learned the amount of energy the district has reduced since the beginning of the program is equivalent to 11.6 million pounds of coal burned, and the amount of energy we've saved could charge 1.3 billion smartphones. And this synergistic, in addition to the energy specialist, also has engineers who give us actionable steps that our facilities people use to deal with COVID so the buildings are quote unquote healthy. And we also heard about how natural gas vendors end up charging us and other school districts. And we learned how delivery charges are determined and opportunities to clean that up. And the energy specialist gave us an example of how she got the bill reduced by $500. As you know, this is just one of many things. She was just bringing up this one example of $500, not $500 in total. And that basically is what transpired at the Finance Committee meeting.
It was a very interesting meeting, and the energy piece was very interesting. And the buildings are great, they're safe, and a lot of that has to do with the buildings being safe during COVID too. So certain of it, but that was a very interesting meeting last week. Thank you so much for that. We're going to approve the appointment of Mark Parisi to the New Jersey School Boards Association delegate. May I have a motion to approve the appointment of Mark to the New Jersey School Boards? Motion?
Left behind, Kathy. Second.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cappiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Hagley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lather?
Yes.
Mr. Messenger?
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have two people who would like to speak tonight. Greg Stokes, 98 Summit Drive and Freehold. Mr. Stokes, you want to come up to the podium?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Greg Stokes. I'm a resident of Freehold. I've lived in this community for 20 years, and I've had 8 children go through the school district, and I've never once come in front of anybody because I have anything that has made me worry about their safety. But there's a condition that I'm concerned about, and I wanted to bring to the board's attention. It's the athletic facilities at Freehold High School. The outdoor fields are a mess. It's not just the football field, it's the practice fields, it's the field hockey field, it's the soccer fields, and it's the baseball diamond over there. And I just wanted to bring it to their attention, to your attention, so that the football fields where I'm going to focus because my son's a football player, but I'm sure that the other parents of other of other athletes would be concerned as well. So the field's in extremely bad condition. It consists of annual bluegrass and weeds. It's covered in thatch and it does not drain properly, so it's consistently wet. And it's infested with grubs and annual bluegrass weevil. In the summer, the heat will kill this grass that's left, and only dirt and weeds will remain. The result is an extremely dangerous playing field for our young scholar athletes. The field has been deteriorating over the last several years, and as a result, the school has seen a significant increase in the number of leg and ankle injuries during sporting events. During the 2021 season, 3 football players suffered season-ending injuries on that field. One of those was a non-contact torn ACL. 2 seasons ago, a young man experienced a non-contact broken femur on the field. His physician reported that he had never heard of such a thing. Every football play is recorded, and if the board is interested in looking at these events, those things can be made available for you to view. Football is a constant contact sport, and it's not for faint-hearted. However, it's not appropriate to place athletes in unnecessary risk in order to participate in their sport. If a floorboard in the gymnasium was up, no games would be played, no practices would be held, volleyball or basketball would be put aside until that was fixed. But we're not showing that type of care for the football and the outdoor athletes. I'm here this evening to bring the situation to the Board of Education's attention and ask if there's anything that can be done to rectify this problem before the season begins in fall and more kids get hurt. It's a liability that as a local taxpayer and the father of a football player, I'm not willing to be silent about. I have a list of questions. I'm sure there aren't any answers tonight because this is kind of coming at you blindsided, but I prepared just a one-page brief with bullet points of questions that I'd like to have answered. And I also had an expert go down and look at the field and give us a plan of action as to what would be the steps to rectify and make it a playable field and a safe environment for our students. That's basically, I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, I'll take your question.
We'll take your question.
Thank you very much.
Call these questions on the floor.
I would like to just end by saying thank you to you for your volunteer service. I recognize that you all work hard, and this is a trying job, and I appreciate all the work and the effort that you folks put into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Secretary.
you.
We have another gentleman, Darren Glover from Manalapan. Darren, did I say it right?
Gilbert, close enough.
Okay. I should put my glasses on. You're right, that's how it is. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Thank you for hearing from me. And I've never met Mr. Stokes, but hearing him speak, I would be remiss if I didn't start off by saying that my son, Owen, who happens to be in the audience, plays soccer at Freehold High School. And I echo everything that he's told you tonight about the outside fields. So you have somebody in support of what you said, Mr. Stokes. I'm here to talk to you tonight about a slightly different situation, but it also involves athletics. And I want to tell you the story of something that has gone on with my son, Owen. And I want to ask you to do what can be done to petition the NJSIAA to revisit what I think has now become an outdated and archaic rule. And let me explain to you what I'm talking about. So my son Owen, in addition to playing varsity soccer, this year for the first time is playing varsity ice hockey. And on the evening of Friday, January 21, the Freehold ice hockey team had a match against Toms River North. And it was a very good game. And as the seconds were winding down to end the game with about 30 seconds left, unfortunately, something of a tussle or a brawl broke out during the ice hockey game. Now, my son Owen is a very level-headed kid. He's not perfect, but he's very level-headed. I can't imagine for the life of him becoming involved in a brawl like this. But he ended up at the bottom of a pile of hockey players. And I happened to mention to my wife, I said, see the guy in the bottom of that pile? That's our son. And a couple of kids from Toms River North got some nice shots, and when he was at the bottom of the pile. And the referees were trying to break things up. And they ended up ejecting my son Owen and another player from Toms River North. And for the life of me, I couldn't imagine why they ejected my son Owen. Now, I'm a pretty reasonable guy. I'm not a crazy parent. And I know that being an official at a high school hockey game is not the easiest job in the world. So I figured they must have made a mistake. It was 30 seconds left in the game. Okay, he got thrown out of the game. It's not the end of the world. But this started a problem for me because I quickly found out that the NJSIAA has a rule that was enacted probably decades ago at a time when people didn't have video recordings or or anything like that. And the rule says that any player who's ejected for unsportsmanlike conduct must be suspended for the next 2 games, and that there's no appeals allowed. Now, at the time this rule was written, I can imagine that no appeals was because you didn't want to have, parents and people lined up saying the ref got it wrong. In my son's case, 5 or 10 parents actually recorded this brawl and sent me the videos. And the videos clearly show my son at the bottom of the pile doing nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, there happened to have been another player from the Freehold Borough ice hockey team who was involved in a fist fight. And it quickly became apparent to me that the referee at the game had simply confused my son with this other player who was seen on video engaged in throwing punches. And the other player wasn't thrown out of the game. So I made contact with the Freehold Borough, I guess you call him a SICA, is that what you call him? I'll call him the athletic director to the day I die. I sent the videos to Mr. Nell, who was terrific. I mean, he saw right away that Owen should not have been thrown out of the game. But what are you going to do? Okay, he got thrown out of the game. But I said, can't we get this 2-game suspension somehow waived? Can't we send them the video and have them take a look at it? And this started an odyssey for me that I can't even begin to understand, with the NJSIAA telling me that the rule allows for no appeals. Now listen, you're in education, I'm not an educator, but I like to think that if somebody presented me with a video that showed me 1,000% that the referee ejected the wrong person from the game, that somebody ought to be able to take some corrective action and not make my son serve a 2-game suspension that he doesn't deserve. Mr. Nell agreed with me. I think he had to get the approval of the high school principal. Dr. Sampson, he may have even spoken to you. I don't know how much you were involved, but I know that the school district itself did a terrific job asking the NJSIAA to take a look at this, and they just refused. They just won't. So I took a look at the rule myself, and the rule is very inflexible. And since I'm an attorney, and what I do is draft stuff like this, I actually rewrote the rule. I rewrote it to conform to modern day times, to allow the NJSIAA, upon the request of a high school athletic director, not of a parent, but of a high school athletic director, to revisit the issue of whether a future 2-game suspension is really required. Now, I understand game time decisions to throw a student athlete out of a game are something that just can't be challenged. It's just not reasonable, it's not practical, it just can't be done. But this future 2-game suspension is just wrong when it's not warranted. And so I redrafted the rule to allow the NJSIAA to either waive or reduce or not enforce that rule in compelling circumstances that show that such a 2-game suspension is not warranted. To me, it makes so much sense, and I can't imagine why the NJSIAA would not want to revisit a rule like this, given the prevalence of video evidence today. I found out that Mr. Braverman, who was the principal of Howell High School, is the Monmouth County representative to the NJSIAA. I attempted to make contact with Mr. Braverman to discuss this possible rule change and maybe whether he could support it at the next NJSIAA meeting. And I have to tell you, he was quite dismissive of me and wouldn't even speak with me, which was...
I'm going to tell a tale out of school now, because what you don't know about that incident is that Mr. Broderman behind the scenes was actually working with Mr. Mell to bring that to the NJSI. So he gave you an official answer, but he worked his tail off behind the scenes with Mr. Mell, because I personally watched that video as well. So I don't want Mr. Broderman to get taught, because he gave you an official answer that he had to do in his official capacity. The guy spent a couple hours on your thing behind the scenes trying to work backdoor channels to get that changed.
Well, I thank him for that. I didn't know that, and so I stand corrected. But what he didn't discuss with me was this suggestion that perhaps a rule change be proposed. Now, this is not going to help my son. You know, he served his 2-game suspension already, which he shouldn't have, but he did. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
We found it was a little intractable.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
So, you know, one of the things that we might be able to do through the Monmouth County Superintendents Roundtable, we have representation there. You know, we can bring it forward. It is a very specific process. You know, and you know, they're not beholden to us in any way. That's what makes it a little bit more difficult for us to get traction. And in your son's case, I watched the video myself. He was on the bottom of the pile. It was clear, it was indisputable, and so we all went to bat behind the scenes.
And I know you did, and I'm very appreciative of that.
We just got nowhere. That was one of the frustrations.
And so I'm suggesting that maybe somebody take the next step in suggesting to them that maybe the rules should be changed.
You know, I know a little bit about the NJSIA. So I was an AD for 25 years, and I served on the executive committee. They have tons of lawyers. You should write your letter and send it to them instead of us being involved, because they do look at things seasonal. They will have a winter meeting in March after the ice hockey championships are over. And I think Mr. Brobman's on that executive committee. I served on for 3 years. And they do look at things just like that, but they don't want us to be involved.
I'll bring it myself, though. I have no problem taking that proposal and trying to work through our county roundtable to at least have it be looked at.
They do look at that stuff. They do. I mean, I've been on many meetings there where they do look at things seasonal, though. They'll wait till March. They're not going to do anything now. But your complaint is probably one of many about ice hockey.
Honestly, we thought it was going to be a no-brainer.
Yeah, they don't do
We
that.
thought it would be overturned, and then, you know, unfortunately, what ended up happening is we took action on what the video showed us, you know, which was different than what the referee did at the time.
Referees have a tough job. They got to make a call in the middle of a game, so, okay, he got thrown out of a game. But when the NJSIA has in their hand evidence that shows maybe the referee made a mistake, why suspend a kid for 2 more games? And so my only point in bringing this to your attention is, when a guy like me sends a letter in saying, hey, change this rule, I get the feeling that they're like, oh, this is some crazy parent. When the Freehold Regional High School District says, hey, we had this happen to one of our student athletes, we've collectively decided that maybe it's time to revisit this rule and take another look at it, I think that comes across a little differently to them.
You'd be surprised. They do pay attention to parents, too. They
Okay.
do. But is he playing again?
Oh, he's playing. He served his 2-game suspension. Yeah, oh, he's fine. Thank you.
Okay, good.
So thank you very much. And I echo the gentleman before me. This must be a thankless job. You know, I'm a graduate of the Freehold Regional High School District, class of 1985, Freehold Township High School. My wife, Howell High School, class of 87. This is now my 3rd kid through the district. I've never been to one of these meetings. I've seen these recordings on TikTok and God knows what goes on with crazy people.
We never get like that.
Never? So thank you very much for your service. I appreciate you listening to
Good
me.
luck.
Thank you.
I have one comment, if possible.
Yes, ma'am.
The only issue with the NJSIA, I mean, you can't only say ice hockey. What would happen is, the same thing would happen with any other sport.
Oh, sure.
If there's a video of something and that person did not do what they did, say on the soccer, and they got a card or, you know,
Yeah.
then you're starting, this would kind of start with every sport.
Well, the rule actually applies to all the sports.
Okay. all right,
So,
that's what I mean.
if there would be a rule change, it would affect all
Two-game
the others.
suspension.
Except for football. Football, they give a dispensation. You only get a 1-game suspension. I guess because the season is so short.
Yeah, the hockey committee will be meeting the 3rd week of March, and they'll look at that stuff. They do.
Okay.
So, they do 3 weeks after their season's over, they meet. All the committees do. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna do G.
Changes.
Changes, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a few changes to the agenda, and then Mr. Castano will also have some additions. There is an addendum on the back. It's to amend an existing motion on the agenda, K1, which is approval of conferences and workshops. And we'd like to add Aaron Grodowski for College Board AP Workshop Physics 2. The dates are February 15th through the 22nd, 2022, at a cost of $175. and the location is online. The other change is in G9, approval of 6-period assignments. The first of those is to change the subject area for Erica Galinsky from financial literacy to social studies, and change the subject area for Michael Capadino from social studies to financial literacy. Also, for the following staff members that show, it's the 5 that show January 20th as the start date. We're going to change all of those to January 19th. And they are Erica Galinsky, Teresa Giordano, Paul Nell, Michael Tapadino, and Robert Wagner. So those are the changes I had, Mr. Toscano.
You had some too, right?
Yes. We have 2 additional resolutions that are going to be added to the agenda tonight. The first one will be J25, and it will be motion to deny the appeal and affirm the findings of the matter discussed in executive session. The second resolution, is going to be G14, and it's going to be a motion to approve the sidebar agreement with the Freehold Regional Education Association dated February 10th, 2022.
Ready, Mrs. Scott?
That is all.
Okay. So we're going to take, may I have a motion to approve G1 through G14 now? May I have a second? I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
I have a second.
Kathy.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes on everything except G14, and I abstain on that.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes, except I abstain on G5, changing to Chris Provo, and on G14.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. Next, we're going to take H, program operations, building, transportation, and physical plant. Now I have a motion to approve H1 through H4.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, have a roll call.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. We're going to take J, K, educational programs and administration. May I have a motion to approve J1 through K1?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second? Mrs. Capiello, the second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes on everything except K1, I abstain on Michelle England.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes, except I abstain on J13 for Angelique Gautier and K1 Michelle England.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Carry.
We're good? Okay. L, any old business anyone would like to discuss? Board members, any old business?
Yes, Mr. President, I forgot when I was giving my report, I forgot to, I left out something that I think my fellow board members should know, is that I was explaining how the auditor, John Swisher, gave us a very good report, but in addition to being an accountant, he is someone that lives in our district, so he is a taxpayer. And he had such good things to say about our administrator of finance, Drew Smith, that I think you guys should know that he really feels that with respect to the financial management of this district, under the direction of Mr. Boyce, we really are one of the, in his opinion, from the districts he does, we really are at the top of the heap in terms of financial controls. And I just wanted everyone to know what a high opinion of Trish Smith he had, and of course, Mr. Boyce, too.
Thank you. You're really embarrassing.
As a taxpayer.
You're embarrassing her with that answer.
Mr. Bruno, I want to say, Mr. Messenger, thank you for
Yeah,
mentioning
that's
that,
nice.
because it was so true. I was at that finance committee meeting, and it's really nice to hear independent professionals come and sit down and let us know that how well our BA and his staff do our financials and how clean everything is. And Mr. Messenger, thank you for bringing that up.
And new business, Mr. Parisi, you can report quickly about the
Sure. So I just want to thank everyone for re-electing me as the New Jersey School Board Association representative for this year. We had a Monmouth County School Board virtual meeting on Monday. There was a discussion, presentation by Ray Penny regarding conflict resolution. Won't get into the details of it, just basically the nuances of personalities on boards of education and how we interact with each other and how we discuss and deliberate different topics and come to consensus, and what do we do when there's not a consensus on an issue and you're trying to maybe garner consensus amongst fellow board members on a particular issue if it's not a unanimous consent type of situation. It was very informative, very interesting. So that was that. I'll let other board members know if there's any other, usually about every 2 months they have a county meeting. If any of this is Bruno, if there's any questions you have regarding any new school board member orientation or any training questions, reach out to me or Mr. Boyce and we'll try to help you out with that. I know that there has been some news lately regarding how there's a bill working its way through the legislature that may maybe possibly result in us no longer having snow days. And that now that we've done virtual, that they may just get rid of snow days. I don't know if maybe Dr. Sampson or anyone else can maybe, because I think the public maybe has heard about it, they're maybe wondering.
Yes, so, that was brought forth in the last Senate Ed Committee meeting, and a number of us provided input. My particular input on it was that I felt that in order so districts have said, hey, this really came out of what happened up in North Jersey with Cresskill when they were hit with Ida. And they were closed for weeks, and the way the legislation is written is you cannot access remote learning unless it was related to COVID in this, emergency, or if there's some legislative dispensation, which hasn't happened, right? So my personal concerns, I welcome the bill with the flexibility, but I only welcomed it with a gateway of utilizing some snow days first, right? So 8-year-old kids out there deserve a snow day. They don't deserve like a one snow day where they're on their computer all day. And same thing for staff who have to dig out and things like that. And so one of the caveats that I asked when my feedback was sought, and I give Senator Bill Powell a lot of credit on this, he called a lot of people for feedback. But my particular feedback was there needs to be a gateway of utilizing snow days first, and then you can access remote. And so if it would be something like, we typically build in 3 snow days in our calendar. Once you get up on that 4th snow day, now you're taking through spring break, things like that, families have planned for. That would be the time to utilize a remote day rather than lose the day. I know there are some colleagues of mine in similar positions who want to be able to access remote at any given time. I think that's dangerous, actually. I think I don't trust everyone to make great decisions with that. And I said that publicly to a number of folks, and took my lumps over saying it, but I believe it. And I think that I know that there's a lot of discussion still yet to come before the bill goes to the Assembly, and then it's going to go to the governor. So I'm hopeful that some of those protections will be there, that it will give us some flexibility so that we're not burning spring break days and things of that nature where families have planned trips and other things. But I do, there's definitely a split perspective on that. But it's like anything else. We know that we can go remote. I think we need to be able to access that in certain situations. But I also think we need to build in some buffers to just not transition straight to remote necessarily. And I also suggested that it be approved by the county superintendent of schools before we do so.
All right, well, thank you for that, I appreciate that. And the only other comment that I have is that I want to shout out to the Howell Rebels wrestling team in winning their sectional match and proceeding to the semifinal tomorrow evening at Howell High School, 6 o'clock. So I want to just wish them well in their tournament tomorrow night. And that's it.
Okay.
Sure. Dr. Sampson brought up Mr. Gopal, so could I ask a question, Mr. Toscano? You may not know the answer, but
I'll do my best.
obviously at this point we've had 3 different legislative teams or group of people, whatever they want to be called, in our district. Do you know when the redistricting map is going to be done for the state legislature? I was just curious if where.
We actually have 4 legislative.
Oh, we have.
Okay.
Actually, if you don't mind, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
They actually have 2 proposed maps available for the public to view. They had an apportionment commission meeting on Wednesday the 9th. The 2 maps are labeled the Parkway Map and the Turnpike Map. It's believed that one of the maps is the Democrats' proposal and one of the maps is the Republican proposal, but they labeled them Parkway and Turnpike. And you can see where what the proposals are at this time. And then they'll have to, they'll vote, and then they have Judge Karchman is the 11th member of the commission, who's the independent commissioner, who will be the tiebreaker in the event that the apportionment commission cannot decide on which map to choose. But it's available online. You can see the maps and where they've redrawn the lines.
Okay. Any new business? That's it? Any more? Anything else? That's so great. So much information. Okay, so we're going to go to adjournment. I have a motion to adjourn.
This is going to be helpful.
Come on, we need a second. Second?
Second.
This is Bruce.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.